Have you heard about Kugurisashi? I have a sampler here. Kuguri is the weaving kind of Sashiko. And I don't do this very often, but I have one here and I'm going to open the packet and we'll have a look what's in it. Now I have done a couple of these before. And they are quite fun to do. So I have some instructions. And they are all in Japanese. But on this one, it does give you quite a nice picture of what we're going to do here. It's very pale on the page, so I'm not sure whether you can see that. So that's actually much better than other patterns that I've had, because quite often they're not in any kind of a colour, and they're really tiny, like this size print. That's actually much better, so I'm quite pleased with that. And then here, it is in Japanese, but there are diagrams, you know, if you don't know how to do it. The one on the front cover, oh, there's 2 pages actually. Let me open it up that way too, so you can see that. So the one on the front cover looks like it's done in 2 colours. They're doing it in a lemon and a pink. And I'm going to do it in 2 colours here. So here is the fabric with the pattern printed on there. And of course, on this, you only get the pattern for the stitching. The weaving, you just have to follow the instructions to put the weaving in. This is the colour I'm going to use for the background. And I'm not really sure what colour I'm going to use for the weaving yet. I was thinking maybe some kind of a lemon or yellow colour. I guess I'll decide that later. I'll do this part and then we'll go on from there. So I'm just going to open this thread up so it's ready. I'm just looking for that little knot of thread. There it is. Now I'll just open that out. And then I'm just going to cut that at the knot. And now that's ready to use. Slide that back on there. In fact, I think I'll just slide it back on there double like that. I want to keep this label because if I don't have enough, then I can always just order more. This thread is Hobby thread. I've used that brand before and I like it. And it's not a really thick one, but I think it'll be good. I think it'll be good for this. When I do match up my other thread, I'm going to try and get about the same thickness. So I may just get more Hobby thread, I'm not sure yet. And then I already have my Sashiko thimble and my Sashiko needle there ready to use. I have to decide whether I'm definitely going to sew through 2 layers, and I have to decide whether I want to leave this where I have to finish it off or finish the edge. So I'm going to go and press it while I think about that. Now, I have ironed these fabrics before. This pattern, though, is water soluble, so you must never use steam on them. And what I always do is I always test it just on the very corner. I always iron on the back and I test it on the corner and just have a look and make sure that pattern's still there. If I just do it right there, that little bit of pattern, usually you can figure out if you do actually lose it. So I'm going to iron it on the back with no steam. Then I'll just go ahead and iron the whole back. And it doesn't matter if every little crease doesn't come out. It'll get creased again when I stitch it. But I need it to be flat enough so that the stitching isn't affected and everything lays smoothly. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. These are 2 other Kuguri samples that I've done. This one I did with white thread for the background, and then the green is a variegated colour. And on this one I didn't finish the edges off before I did it because I planned to put it in maybe in a cushion, but I've actually never decided just what to do with it, so it's just sitting there waiting for me to make my mind up. And this one I actually use, and so you can probably tell that it's been used, and it just stands on my table and I stand things on it, a candle or a lamp, whatever. And again, this one had a green background, and then the thread on the top is variegated pink, purple, different pinks. And they both came out quite pretty. And I just really enjoy doing this weaving Sashiko. But I don't really like to use it in quilts because with this thread being woven, it doesn't feel very secure, like it would catch easily. And so it doesn't seem to be serviceable for that kind of use. So I probably do it less than the others, even though I like it some of the best. So I've decided I am going to finish the edges. So I'm going to put it right sides together and sew around the edge, and I'll leave a little opening so that I can turn it back through. And I want to make this exactly 1/2 inch from this outer stitch line. And so with a ruler I did just draw a line, and then I've ironed that over so that now when I put this right sides together I can see a sewing line to sew on, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to tell where the pattern was. So now I can sew down this line, and I'll have a nice even edge all the way around the outside. So I've sewn all around the edges and turned this through and pressed it so the edges are all even and nicely placed. Pointed out the corners with a little sharp tool that I've got. I've turned it through, and I just have to close this little opening here now. So I've got some matching thread, and I've pressed in the edges. I just need to get rid of that little thread there. I'm just going to push that inside. So I'm going to close this opening here with a little stitch that's almost invisible. And the way to do that is put your needle in wherever the thread comes out, put your needle in the opposite side of the fabric and exactly in an exactly opposite position. Carry it and go back where it comes out. Navy does not show up well on camera, but it also doesn't show up very well when you're sewing, so it's quite easy to make this closure one that you can't really see. And it'll just take a few minutes to close that off. I'm just getting out my Kuguri that I'm going to do today. Oh, I've got my thimble on, okay. Set that to one side. And I've decided to put some tacking stitches in here. I've done all around the edges, so that's all ready to go. And I'm just going to pin this across and then put a few tacking stitches or basting stitches. Now, I don't always do this, but if you want to do it, I thought I would just, do it as a demonstration of how I would do it. You can see how these might need holding together a little bit, these two layers that I'm doing. For some reason, I've not had a problem with it, so I don't often actually do any tacking on here, and I'm just going to do a little bit. And another thing, if you're concerned that the back and front fabric might part and you'll end up with a fold in the back or something, another thing you could do would be to start in the middle, do a line across the centre in both directions, but again, I don't usually do that. So let me take my Sashiko needle out of the way, and I just have a regular needle and thread here to do a few tacking stitches. And I'm even really not going to do very much of this. It's not going to need a whole lot. Doesn't matter at all about these stitches because they are going to come out. So, if you want to do this, you don't have to be careful. It really doesn't take very long at all. I noticed when I was doing this, there's actually quite a lot of markings on this particular Kuguri pattern. And when I've done Kuguri before, I believe that there was not as much background sewing for the ones that I already did. This one seems to have quite a lot, so this is going to be more fun, more pleasure for the money, eh? This pattern actually, I didn't give you its name, but it's called Kuguri. Obviously is the weaving pattern, but the actual pattern is called Kiko Hanasashi, which is literally tortoise shell flower stitching. This pattern looks very different to the Kiko I've done before. It's one of my favourites. And of course I could just do the Sashiko with just these pins in here, but you know, it's a bit hard to do that without sticking yourself, because you know you're always gathering the material up as you're loading your stitches onto the needles, and also the thread tends to wrap around the pins and get tangled up a little bit. It's possible, but it's probably not the best idea. So you can see how big I'm doing these stitches, and it'll just hold everything nice and steady, so I won't have to worry that things are getting out of place. And when I've done this, I'll actually start some stitching. So I'm just taking the pins out, and these very rough tacking stitches will hold this in place. And they'll be pretty easy to clip out later on. And if you want to, you can, even as you get to each line, take them out. And that way you wouldn't be worried that they would be getting caught in your stitches. I'm going to go on and start some Sashiko now. And I think that for this, because I've talked about how you could sew it along, divide it into quarters, I think I'll just go ahead and do this one that way. Just hold that there, smooth this back out, and then I can stitch over these stitches. And again, I'm just doing these beginning ones one at a time to make sure I get the placement correct. There are my 3 or 4 stitches in the opposite direction, and now I'm turning around and sewing over them. This won't be this slow once I get going. I'm trying on this one to make the back look as neat as the front. I don't want a knot in the back, and this way of beginning means that it won't show. Okay, I'm just going to cut this little end off here. I do pull this a little bit tight when I cut it because I want it to disappear into the fabric. And now I'm just going to switch back to my normal Sashiko. So I'm following the pattern, putting my needle in exactly on the marked lines. I'm loading several stitches at once onto my needle. I'm having to be really careful because these stitches are really very small. I'm glad I used quite a thinner thread on this project already. And now I'm just pulling the thread through. And that 3 strokes with the thumb gives me tension control. Do you see how small those stitches are? That row will go down the centre that way, and then I'll do a row down the centre that way. I've got along to the end of this centre row here. I've been doing my tension control all the way along. And I was just going to show you here that when you carry it to the next row, which I am actually not doing, I'm going to finish this off. But if you were carrying it to the next row, you can just put it in to the last stitch point. Don't go through to the back of the material. Having that same trouble separating this fabric. But go in between the 2 fabric layers and come out at the beginning of your next row, ready to sew, and then nothing will show on the back. But I'm actually going to finish this thread off so you can see how to do that invisibly. And it's really the same as the way that you started, but in the reverse. So you would go in here, but again, not go all the way through. And then you would come out at this stitch and just do your normal 3 stitches. And again, I'm just doing this one at a time in this case, because I want my placement to be exact. And when I go into this one, I'm not going to the back of the material. I'm going between the layers. I'm going to follow the line of the stitching, come out there, and just cut that off. Let that go inside. It does look a little bit thicker, but it's hardly noticeable. It makes the back look better. And especially on this with the weaving in and out, you're not going to see that when it's finished. And then this row of tack in here, I don't need it anymore because this is held in place. So I'm just going to pull this out. And then I won't be worrying about it catching in my other stitches. And there's enough left in there that other will all remain in place. And now I'm going to rejoin my thread to the middle and sew along a centre line. So this is now divided into quadrants. Now I would finish off my thread here and just go backwards and forwards all in one direction. Start at this end and work my way across. Just because I've got already plenty of thread left here, I am just going to do these couple of centre rows rather than start and stop again, which is fiddly. I just think that's a better option. So I'll do a couple more rows, and then when I rejoin new thread, I will begin at the beginning and go in the regular order. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm getting on with this Kuguri sampler now. I wasn't sure what colour I was going to do the top layer with, and so I sent for these threads. I'm not sure if I'm going to use that because actually I don't think it's going to be enough contrast. But this was a set of 3, and this brand is Daruma, which is a well-known brand. I don't think I've used these before. If I have, I don't remember. I don't very often buy the ones on the cards. Usually I buy the kind of Sashiko that comes in a hank. So it's possible, but I don't remember. But what was interesting was that in the packet that they came in was this little instructions of how to make a Japanese towel, which I thought was pretty interesting, and they're in English. One of the things I noticed was it shows you a different way of finishing off your thread. So I'm almost at the end of a thread here, and so I'll show you what they are showing me to do. And then I'll tell you what I think about it. I just need to sew this last little bit of thread up. So I have this little tail left now. So I'm going to sew this in about 3 stitches. Now this last stitch, I'm not going to go through to the underneath of the work. I'm just going to put it into the fabric. Sometimes it is a bit hard to get it in between, but you know, I'm trying to make the back of this look neat, so I have been taking the time to do this. So I'm going to come out a few stitches along, and I'm just going to pull that through and pull it off. Now this is the way they're showing to do it on these instructions. Some of these tacking stitches I'm just pulling out as I go. I'm just going to rethread my needle with a new thread. So I just want to show you that I've done this already a few times, and this was the issue that happened to me. And I think in the end that this isn't going to show, but here it seems like there's nothing to hold the thread from being loose, and so it separates a little bit. I'm not really that happy with that as a result. And so what I decided to do that was a little bit different was, instead of just going back here and in and doing some stitches, I actually put a tiny little knot at the end of my thread. This is not a Sashiko knot really, because that wouldn't go through the fabric. This is just a single thread small knot, and that'll just help to lodge that behind the stitches here. I'm going to start back here. Okay, now I'm going to come up exactly on one of those stitches, and I'm just going to pull gently on this, and the knot will go in between the two fabrics. I don't want to pull too hard or it'll just come clean out. All right, and I'll cut that little tail off later. And now I'm going to just sew as normal over these stitches that I've made. And I'm going to pull this a little bit tight because I'm hoping that it lays directly beneath my stitches and that this catches the underneath thread as I go. And that should hold it in place. And now I'm just onto my normal stitching. So that's quite a good result. I'll just cut those little thread ends off there. I've just brought this around because it wasn't a very good angle from the other side, so that you can see. And all I did once I got the knot in was sew over the original stitches, just one stitch at a time. And I think you can see there that that join really doesn't show very well. And then I've just cut off the little loose ends. So I think that's a pretty good way of doing this. It's new to me. I've not done this before. So I quite like that. And I'll just carry on with this project. This is the back. It's looking pretty neat. I was trying not to have any carried over stitches. I think that's actually a loose end that I can cut off. So yeah, so I'm quite pleased with the way this is going. It's much more time consuming than I expected though, so it's still going to be probably a couple of weeks before I get this video made. I'm almost done now with this sampler, getting on quite well. It's taken me much longer actually than I expected. The other Kuguri samplers that I have done have not taken this long. One of the reasons I think is there are lots of tiny stitches in here, and I think on the other Kuguris that I did, they were the largest stitches. And the other thing that slowed me down is trying to keep the back looking as nice as the front. Because doing that, I had to pass the thread in between the two layers of fabric at these points where I've moved from one line to the other. And I found that to be really quite difficult. I found in the end the easiest way, if I could do it, was to put the needle in the wrong way around, because that way it didn't stick into the fabric. But this fabric is a little bit on the loosely woven side, so it's been possible in some cases, but sometimes I just couldn't seem to get it through like that. After all the horizontal rows, obviously I did all the vertical rows. Sashiko's stitching was done in just the same method. Going in this direction where every stitch is tiny, I found it was easier to do less stitches at once, which is not my usual practice. But I'm going to get to the end of this row and finish that row, which will be the last one, and then we'll go ahead and do the weaving part. I just wanted to show you what it looked like up to now and how I'm getting on. This row here is the only one that I've got left to do. I have my contrast thread here for the weaving part, and I am starting with a small knot. Turn the needle backwards and slip it beneath each long stitch, alternating between the first and second rows, making these V shapes. I've got to the end of the row here, and what I want to do now is I want to go into this point of the stitch. Now this is where the thread would normally have threaded through, so I'm going to put my needle in there to be hidden underneath, And where I want to come out is at this stitch here. And so I want to try and pass my thread through this fabric without having stitches showing on the other side. And then I'm going to come up exactly at this point. And then I'll pull it through, turn it round and start going down the other side. So again, it's going to go up and down on the whole row. This part's going to go really quickly. And do you see how that's forming the pattern? It's making a diamond with these little crosses in the centre of it. You see that? And again, I'm being really careful of my tension. So that's really all there is to show you about this. So I'm just going to complete this project and I'll show you what it looks like finished. Because I'm trying not to show the stitches at the back, starting and stopping at the ends is a problem. So I've always tried to do the starting and stopping when I get to the end of a row. And the way I've found the best to do it, seeing as I can't actually do any sewing in this because it would show, is to see where the thread would go to, which is that point right there, and then tie a knot in my thread which will sit just at that point. So, and this is just a simple, this isn't a Sashiko knot, it's just a simple thread because I need it to be able to pull through to the centre of the fabric. If I put my needle about where I want the thread to be and just pull and tug a little bit, I can make that knot sit in just about the right place. So I'm going to pull the knot quite tight so it'll thread into the material. And then I've just unthreaded my needle. And then look for the spot that would be the natural place it would be. Put the needle into there, through the centre of the fabric again, and pull it out somewhere up here, and just pull hard until that knot clicks into the fabric, and you can hear it give a little click as it goes in, and then just cut that off. And that's worked pretty good. I wouldn't do that in the centre of a row. I think it would catch your eye and show a little bit, but on the edge you have a little more forgiveness for doing things like that. So that's how I've solved that problem. If you weren't trying to preserve the back and make it look neat, it wouldn't be a problem. You could just pass your thread through to the back side and do a couple of stitches on the other side and hold it in place just like you would with regular stitching. So all the centre of this is finished now, and I am really pleased with that. I like it. And what I decided to do was go around the edge and also do the kind of Kuguri weaving in the stitches around the edge. So I'm not really sure if I've made the right decision here. What do you think? You can see there what it looks like with the weaving in it, and I haven't done these two sides yet, so you can see what it looks without. But I guess I'm committed to doing this now. So what I'm going to do is just continue on around, and all I'm doing is just going into each stitch, not pulling it too tight, And this is actually really quite a quick process. In fact, the whole weaving part of this has been really quick to do. It took me a really long time to do the hitomezashi part, which was all the little stitching, because a lot of the stitches were so small, I think was one of the big problems, and also because of the care I was taking to try and make the back look good. So I'll just finish going around here and this project will be complete. So I hope you like that. I hope you'll try some Kugurisashi for yourself. It's a lot of fun to do. And I'll show you this one. I've just finished going around the edge. The project's finished. Thanks for watching.